Welcome everyone to Coffee with Karina and Mark. And for those that don't know us, I am Karina McLeod. I'm an ex-Amazonian. I've spent 15 years in the Amazon world, 7 years working for Amazon in the UK, and 8 years consulting for vendors and sellers in North America and Europe. I am the CEO and founder of E-Commerce Nurse, an Amazon-focused agency, and Vendor Society, a community for Amazon vendors. And we are also going to have Mark, who's here today. So Mark.
Hi everyone. Thanks, Karina. Yeah, so I'm Mark Petit, similar to Karina, ex-Amazonian employee. Worked in the Amazon advertising division for a number of years, and then several years ago I founded a full service Amazon marketing agency called Sky High Media, and yeah, never looked back.
Fantastic. So for those that are new to Coffee with Mark and Karina, this is basically, well, hopefully during your coffee break. Unfortunately, I've already had my coffee, so I'm wired. I think Mark at the moment is on his tea, so maybe it's tea with Mark and Karina. But we're just going to have 10 to 20 minutes chat between us about the most current subjects out there on Amazon and in e-commerce in general. Now, there's always some hot topic going on, especially right now with COVID-19. So we thought we'd start off this series of short conversations by focusing on the topic of coronavirus and the current impact that it's had on businesses on Amazon and beyond, and more importantly, looking out after we come out really this storm and those opportunities that are going to be out there for businesses. So we'll jump in, and first off, let's talk about Mark. Let's talk about kind of the current landscape on Amazon at the moment, because it's changing. There's been this kind of part where everyone's panicked. Nobody really knew what's going on. We've now got it to this point where we're getting almost accustomed to this lockdown, and businesses are starting to feel calm. So yeah, let's talk about what that currently looks like on Amazon.
Yeah, it's a really good starting point, and I think it's great that we've got this first episode of this series where we're really going to try and focus on the positivity and the positives coming out of this pandemic. I think the negatives are very well covered, and it doesn't need further content on that. But if we go back to the beginning of March, and you and I were in a very similar boat as probably most people involved in retail and e-commerce, where we really didn't know how things were going to pan out. And I think what we saw across our client base was almost a kind of look out for, can we get your help? Can we get your assistance? We don't know where this is going. Do you guys know? And we're like, not really. Like we don't know what direction it's going to move in. We didn't really anticipate the bricks and mortar side of the business closing down completely. We didn't anticipate that lots of brands would go out of stock, or actually Amazon would limit their efficiencies to focus on essential items. So really, it's a learning curve for all of us. Mm-hmm. However, where there are negatives, there are positives. And although there are businesses struggling, although there are businesses that will not come out of this, there's also a lot of upweight for other brands that will actually grow stronger. And I think we'll also see a vast increase in new companies being formed. People have got an awful lot of time in their hands where they've been pondering on a business idea for a few years. All of a sudden, their current position has decreased their hours, or they're maybe been furloughed. So I actually think you're going to see a changed landscape positively overall off the back of this.
Definitely. That's interesting. And like you say, down at the start of March, I just remember clients just like emailing us, not sure what's going on, or even not necessarily clients, but people that sort of know us as those that are heavily in the industry. As in, what's going on? We haven't received any purchase orders. And it's almost like nobody really knew what was going on, but more so there was no real notification. So it was almost sort of panic or not really panic, not knowing what's going on, then finding out what's going on, and businesses panicking, thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to support clients? There's no stock. Amazon's not prioritizing our products, etc., etc. But then it started to calm. And then businesses are starting to think more clearly, or people are starting to think at first maybe, oh, lockdown, for example, in the UK was only a few weeks, right? And then it extended. And I think people didn't really understand how long that would be. And so definitely what we've seen is actually, as you say, these business people coming to us, they're not necessarily Amazon, they're not Amazon sellers. They're actually people that have got a business, like they might have a salon or a shop, or, they've got some other business, but actually this closure has made them sort of reassess and think, oh, actually, what could we be doing that offers something similar, but in the form of something where actually, instead of somebody coming to us for a service, we can provide that in the form of a product, And as you say, it's kind of, the positive is actually, I guess we've been in a world where there's a lot of complacency, right? Because everybody's we haven't gone through anything this dramatic in our generation, and businesses have been going, some businesses go out of business, some businesses survive, and that's kind of how it's always been. But it's really interesting having these conversations with people, because everybody's reassessing, because also, even when we come out of this light, what is that, for businesses, is it, we're not going to go back to how it was.
Yeah, and look, we could probably have this video cast run for 2 hours and chat about many different subjects. And obviously you and I do that offline all the time.
Yeah.
And of course, that's what's exciting. We will cover many different subjects over the coming weeks and months. But it's fair to say that people's buying behavior has changed and will continue to change. Even the subject of brand loyalty, it's always been questionable, but it's never been scrutinized more than now, because I'll give you a classic example. Although this is the coffee break, I drink tea. So I don't drink coffee, I drink tea. And I drink Earl Grey tea in the morning. I've tried to get the brand that I always buy. It's out of stock. So I've went on Amazon and I've looked elsewhere, and I've switched brand like that. Now, that doesn't mean that, okay, I'm not going to be loyal to the previous brand, but actually, if I just get used to the buying habit of buying this new brand, then there we go. So that new company's all of a sudden ascertained a new customer. So overall, I think that people's buying behaviors and habits will change. They were changing anyway. More people were buying things online. But where I think brands like Amazon and other e-commerce players will really benefit is those considered and even larger purchases, those bulkier items where it's been almost impossible to be able to get home office furniture. And people traditionally wouldn't really like buying that kind of stuff on Amazon. Well, that's changed, because now you don't really have much choice. You have to buy online. So you're seeing these trends kind of come in and out of fashion, but many of them will definitely stick around long term.
Yeah, definitely. And that's an interesting point about brand loyalty and selection, because, just because we're seeing this from a business side of things, but we're also part of it as a consumer. And, you realize that there's a lot of things that you don't have, or you rely on just popping out and getting things. And we've been spoiled, really. We've been spoiled with selection. We've been spoiled with a variety of options. But actually what boils down is, when you've got selection, and all the products are available, you might go for your brand, and you decide, and you've got so many different options. But at the same time, when you have less options, it doesn't stop you from buying the product. You're still going to buy the item, you're just going to have less choice. And if that brand isn't available, you go to a different brand, right? So
and even the psychology of Amazon has changed. And you and I have this conversation quite a lot with brands in certain categories where Amazon is pictured as the villain. But that's changed for a lot of companies, because Amazon is the only source of income that those brands are making money in. And all of a sudden, Amazon is now the hero. All of a sudden, they've had to pull budgets from bricks and mortar and bring it onto the e-commerce giant. So it's really interesting where we're starting to see the psychology and the perception of Amazon for some companies completely change. And that will change businesses probably for the long term. If they invest now and they're growing that channel because it's working for them, then it's unlikely they're going to go back to the previous model where they've maybe underinvested in Amazon in the past. So,
Yeah, completely change the dynamics. And I think there's this other thing where when business has been working with Amazon in the past, have been like, FBA, you have to do FBA. This is the only way of working with Amazon. Actually, FBA didn't actually help a lot of the businesses when it started out. It was kind of like Amazon had the ability to say, no, you can't send any more shipments into FBA. We're closing the doors. And that also created something else amongst those that are already selling on Amazon, as in, wow, we actually don't have a backup plan. We don't have a contingency. And started to panic, well, how does our business cope? Well, in actual fact, your business can cope. You can ship the product direct to customer, but nobody's ever really thought that was a good idea because everybody was so FBA, Prime eligible, etc., etc. But all of a sudden, at one point, nobody cared about Prime. They just wanted to go for the product that was going to get there the quickest. And Prime actually ended up being the longest. And it was really interesting to see the businesses that didn't really sort of get impacted were those that were pretty used to selling direct to consumer, right? Because they've already got used to that. They could kind of switch one on to the other. But actually, it's really shift the whole dynamics with sellers now, as in a lot of sellers are now setting up a contingency or a second, looking into the logistics of how they can actually serve direct to consumer, or actually sorting out their websites, because actually Amazon didn't help them because their sales dropped. If Amazon was saying, oh, it was like a customer went on and it was the 10th of April and said, well, you can't get your product till the 30th of April, I found myself looking on other websites.
Of course, yeah.
And so I think that's also made businesses, not only those businesses that have bricks and mortar that think, yeah, we need to sell on Amazon as an additional revenue. It's that those that were so, let's say, in bed with Amazon, realizing, hang on, we actually need to have our own business set up if we want to.
100%.
So
yeah, and this partly covers the hybrid model of some kind, and being able to fulfill. Not every company can fulfill their own stock. I get that, but you almost don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. You don't want to rely on Amazon 100%, particularly if you're a vendor and all of a sudden your item is non-essential, then you could be struggling to actually, obviously get more stock into the warehouse in situations like this.
Yeah, definitely. So how would you say it, like, because we're getting a lot of clients come to us and they've obviously, they know that they want to invest, or they know that they might need to change their model depending on if they're new or existing. How do you sort of see guiding or the tips that you would give to sellers or vendors right now coming, that we might be coming out of lockdown soon, but we don't really know what that means, but it definitely means change?
So it does, but I think we also have to take into consideration how Amazon works as a business. And Amazon doesn't like monumental change within the operations of your business. For example, it doesn't like you going in and out of stock on a regular basis. It doesn't like you, scaling back on things like advertising spend dramatically. It likes consistency and it rewards brands for consistency. And so some of the areas, and really the thing you've got to try and do in this marketplace is not to give overall advice, because advice really should be tailored to a business's needs. I've seen an awful lot of content on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, where it's general advice, and I'm always worried that people will take that, because really you have to understand a business inside out to give advice. But generally speaking is the best we can do in something like this, is that you want to try where possible keep things consistent. So if you are in a position where your business on Amazon is steady, and you don't have to be obsessed with growing right now. I think that the main goal has to be just trying to survive, having a steady income.
Yeah.
So that conversation is different from a company that actually we are seeing record-breaking sales and we have money to invest. What do we do with it? Those two strategies will be very different. But I think for us, overall, and you're involved in many of the strategy conversations that we have across our portfolio of clients, is that where possible, we try and maintain things on a steady motion. We don't want to change things too much. If, for example, you're maybe going to go out of stock because you've had record-breaking months, What changes can we make to scale that back that won't have a fundamental impact on your business and potentially punish you from a rankings perspective, things like that?
Yeah, completely. And that's what we found. It's an interesting one, because at first with the panic, everybody was like, what do we do? Do we stop? Do we just put things on hold? And it's like, just don't do anything dramatic right now, because you don't want to impact all that hard work that you've been doing to create a momentum on Amazon. But we've found, some people might have been hit from a financial side of things and need to pull back, but slow it down. Don't necessarily be dramatic, right? And whereas some, as you say, believe that the surge might result in out of stock. But as you say, it's kind of not doing anything too dramatic, because at the end of the day, we don't know, and you don't want to sort of pull the reins on too much or go crazy when you don't know what's going to happen in 3 weeks, 4 weeks time.
But if you think about how Amazon's set up, Karina, in terms of the platforms, there's different platforms, the advertising console, you've obviously got seller or vendor. Amazon is not a switch on and switch off service. Although technically it is, you can go into a page, or you can go into an advertising campaign and turn it off. It's not designed to do that. And so you really have to be thinking about, where was I pre-pandemic and how was my business operating? And this anomaly that we're in right now is not the new benchmark, but you really want to try and keep things consistent. We're still onboarding some new clients on our side, which is great. But the questions that we're asking them from a strategy perspective, whether it's retail side or advertising side, the same foundation questions are there. But of course, we've slightly designed and tailored that now to look at, actually give us an idea of how your overall business is, because that will affect the type of advice that we give to clients. If you're coming to me and saying that Amazon's our only channel, we've had to lay off people or furlough people or decline hours, then we need to know that, because our strategy recommendations will maybe not be as aggressive as a company that's saying, right, we've got tons of cash in the bank, we're smashing it on Amazon, we're all focused on market share here. How do we increase our market share? How do we get those new to brand customers? So the advice really does change, but it's about actually having a full depth overview of a company rather than just, how's your Amazon business doing?
Yeah, exactly. It's a good point, because at the end of the day, every setup is different. And even as you say, a brand could be doing really well on Amazon, and then there's assumption, well, they're fine. But actually, what then you hear about, oh well, their Amazon business is fine, but 80% their Amazon business was only 20% of their overall business, and they've just lost 80%. So actually, that's why they might then start wanting to put a lot more in the vendor. But also some of them end up with, like, as you say, furlough skeleton on the other side. So it's as you say, every situation is different. And so, and also setup, some businesses have been able to switch between all these different fulfillment methods, or switch to their website and everything. But others have just not been able to do that. And and
on your side of things, as an Amazon expert, or someone that understands Amazon, are you finding that clients are either putting you, like, not clients, brands that you work with, brands that are watching your content across all your channels, are they relying on you even more now during this pandemic than what they were before it?
Definitely. There's been a lot more attention, I would say, on Amazon, partly for those where Amazon has now become a bread and butter. It might have been an additional business, if they had bricks and mortar. And so, they've definitely come to us, but of course come to us almost for a little bit of reassurance, right? As in, you're dealing with all these brands, so you kind of know what's going on, although, at the end of the day, we're just as much in the dark as anybody else. But that reassurance that, what? It's going to be all right. We don't need to go crazy and panic. Everybody's in the same boat. We don't know what's happening on the other side. What you're doing, you're selling, keep your head above. And as you say, it's almost survival mode as well. yes, there are some businesses that think this is a great opportunity to capitalize, but there are also some businesses that just want to make it through, right? Don't want to lose the
Yeah.
hard work that they've done. So yeah, we've definitely found, I'm finding a lot of clients come, but almost, yeah, it's just an element of reassurance as well that, you know, it's all right. The business will
Yeah.
be okay. Just keep at it, you know, keep that momentum going, and we'll get through that storm.
Like situations like this that affect mankind heavily,
Yeah.
typically result in a surge in creativity. And one of the stories that I've always remembered, it was a podcast I listened to many years ago about the story of Frankenstein and actually how the story was created and written. It was written in the early 1800s by a lady called, I think it was Mary Shelley, and I think in about, was it 1815 or 1816, Europe was experiencing one of the worst summers it had ever had. Crops were killed. It was constantly raining. I think there was previously a volcano eruption that just interfered with the entire weather system.
Yeah.
And off the back of that, and the purpose of this story is that in that time in the 1800s, not only were these amazing stories created, but many different products came out of that. And we have to expect the same to happen here, where all the creative people that are now stuck in their houses, their flats or apartments are going to use that time positively to either create their own brands that they'll sell online and potentially bricks and mortar further down the line. They'll create services. So for me, this is a really exciting time, because someone who's very interested in e-commerce in general, I'm seeing a lot of new brands popping up who were just about to launch before all this happened, and actually they've just accelerated their plans, to some friends of mine who are interested in creating brands in the fitness and health industry. So I think that's really positive. I think it's never been easier to set up a company online, which we know.
True.
And we're just starting to see people really actually accelerate that program.
Yeah, definitely, and that's definitely it. It's there's a real positive in that people are having that time to think, actually, that project that's been on my list for years that I've wanted to do, I'm going to go and make it happen. And also, just
of course,
for those that have been a bit more not so familiar with technology, online buying, and just the virtual world in general, people have been forced into it, so it's almost accelerated that to some extent. I'm excited in a way to see what's going to come out of the other side, because at the end of the day, it's not a great situation to be in. We're all aware of that, but let's turn it to a positive, as in what can come out of this, you know. So I would say, let's wait and see. Now, I'm conscious that we said coffee break, and coffee break I think is about 15 minutes, and I know we could talk for hours. So probably good. Let's sort of end this session with a tip from each of us, right? For anyone that's listening, we've been talking about it, but I know some listeners like to take away something, you know, something that actionable. Sure. At least they feel that they've got this golden nugget from a conversation. So what would be your tip to those at sort of going through the motions at the moment?
So I would say that regardless whether you have representation from a consultant or agency, your commerce and or Amazon strategy, or whether you're doing it yourself, don't make fundamental changes that could actually end up harming your business long term. I think the one kind of phrase to remember is small, steady steps are far more effective than massive swings and change. Completely.
I completely agree there. And
back to you, what would you say? What would be your kind of bit of advice?
Mine would be contingency, having a backup plan, because what we've seen is so many businesses not have them, and as a result they've suffered. So you don't know what's going to ever happen, so always sort of prepare, and never sort of and just always prepare that there's always an element of risk. So what is that backup strategy if a scenario like this, for example, happened again? So I think there's two things then. Is just go steady, don't be too dramatic in changes, just as you say, small steps, steady, and then also just having that backup strategy in case that happens. So have you finished your tea?
I have, and like you say, if this was a real coffee break and I was working for someone else, I'd probably be sacked by now for how long we've taken. But there we
Yeah,
go.
exactly. So yeah, well, I would say that I've got to go. Am I out of my coffee break to the office? But I'm actually in the
Yeah,
office and I'm stuck in a
this is it.
room.
White walls.
All the
White walls. They're not padded, I promise, but yeah.
Exactly. Cool. Well, hopefully for those that have been listening have enjoyed coffee with Karina and Mark, and we will be having regular chats over our coffee or tea and about those subjects. As we say, COVID-19 is a really hot topic at the moment. You never know what's going to happen now until the next time we chat, so we might be talking about this. But if you subscribe to both of our YouTube channels, our YouTube channel is e-commerce nurse, and Mark, your YouTube channel?
Well, there's no content on there, but it's Sky High Media, so this would be one of the first videos that we'll put on it.
Fantastic. So yeah, we're starting to focus more on our YouTube channels. So if you can be our first few subscribers, that would be fantastic, to e-commerce nurse and Sky High Media, and keep your eyes and ears open for our next chat. Thank you.
Thanks.